Hi everybody, Jackie here. It's Sunday, September 27th. The virtual spirit walk starts tomorrow, but I'm actually starting a day early because I pledged to walk quite a bit. um, 5 kilometers for every $100 that I raise before midnight tonight. Uh, so, um, I'm at about $1,600 right now. So assuming people will continue to give, that means I'm going to walk almost 100 kilometers over the course of 12 days. So I wanted to start early just in case I get hurt or sick or something happens that keeps me from walking on some of the 12 days of the virtual spirit walk. So I'm going to try to do a little video like this at every walk and to keep folks updated. So I'm in Verdun today along the river. It's a beautiful day. Meeting up with a friend later. So I guess for this first video I want to talk a bit about the land. We hear a lot about land acknowledgements and how they're sometimes perceived as lip service. People do a land acknowledgement and then move on, which is kind of like saying, yeah, I sold this thing and I'm sorry, and I'm not returning it. So I think it is important as a first step. I mean, I base my thoughts on this by reading the words of Indigenous activists and scholars and other thinkers, artists. So this isn't something I just pulled out of my head magically, just so you know. But I think it is important as a first step, based on things I've been reading, to acknowledge where we are and think about where we are. And it's not about feeling guilty, but it's about feeling accountable. So, I'm on this island commonly known as Montreal, traditionally known as Tiohtià:ke in the Kanien'kehá:ka language. And, commonly it's acknowledged that the Kanien'kehá:ka peoples are the caretakers of these lands, and that also this place has been a gathering place for a very long time for people of many nations, from all directions, and it continues to be. Sometimes in popular discourse I hear people talking about Indigenous people in the past. And it's important to know that there's a thriving urban Indigenous community right here, composed of people from all over the place, not even just North America, but just taking into account North America, you have people from nations from all over, and who are doing really amazing things. And so, when I do these acknowledgements, people who know me know I always throw in a bit of education, and some of that was in there. But I guess that leads me to reflecting on that urban Indigenous community, and so that includes a lot of organizations, a lot of individuals, but a lot of organizations, and one of them is the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. So they're doing some amazing things, and it's why I love to support them every year for the Spirit Walk. I missed a couple of years. Last year was one of them, but I'm really happy that you decided to do it this year in this virtual way. It's a beautiful way for people to get involved, and it's not too late to sign up as a walker. So for those who don't know, the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, they do a lot of things. Obviously they provide shelter services for Indigenous women. I spoke to a couple of people there a couple of years ago. They're trans inclusive, so transgender women are welcome, which is not the case for all women's shelters. And every year they do this spirit walk to help raise funds for different things. And in other years it was so that they could take the women and children who use their services on a retreat out into the land. For non-Indigenous folks, it's super important to know that the relationship with the land is so important in Indigenous cultures. It's a fundamental part of people's identities, nourishment at all levels, not just nourishment in terms of food, but spiritual and emotional nourishment. And so it's very healing for people to go out on the land and eat traditional foods. And so I think it's a beautiful project, and so I really love helping to raise funds for that every year. This year, I guess with the pandemic, that's not something that they're able to do, I'm guessing. So the funds this year are to help employ somebody to advocate for the rights of Indigenous children. If you aren't very informed on this, there's a lot out there, and you can ask me and I can send you some links, but on the kidnapping of Indigenous kids not stopping after residential schools. That's a big topic these days, residential schools. And Orange Shirt Day is coming up on September 30th, and it's super important to talk about that and the long-lasting effects of residential schools and day schools, right? Even the schools that were in the communities themselves, did really horrible things to the kids. So, in addition to taking them from their families. But after that, there was the 60s scoop, and that never ended. So you have, social workers taking kids out of their families for a whole bunch of reasons that they would perceive as that household not being good for the kids. And, these were by, Euro-Canadian colonial standards, and also not taking into account that if families are living in poverty and dealing with intoxication, most of that is because of the effects of residential schools. So, that's still going on. And so a lot of people are suffering. A lot of kids are ripped from their families and adopted or fostered by non-Indigenous kids, non-Indigenous people, who some of them, have the well-being of the kids at heart, and who make an effort to keep their kids connected with their Indigenous cultures, but not everybody does. And so I think it's great that the shelter is, raising awareness about this and advocating for children, Indigenous children and families. There's also Cindy Blackstock and the First Nations Family and Caring Society. I always forget what the letters stand for. So anyway, that's what funds are being raised for this year with the Spirit Walk, and thank you to all the people who've contributed so far, and please keep giving. It's, again, for me, it's about accountability. So tying in with the land acknowledgement, if we're settlers and we're living here, even if we're not very wealthy, we're benefiting from over 500 years of colonialism. If you get a paycheck, that money, whether it's a corporation paying you or the government, that money comes from the exploitation, the theft and exploitation of resources on which Indigenous peoples have relied for thousands of years, and of which they took care of for thousands of years. So it's important to acknowledge that and take some accountability. So if you're just starting to learn about this stuff, doing research, and sometimes you're going to feel guilty. That's normal. You need to process that, preferably with fellow settlers, and not putting the burden on Indigenous people to comfort you. And take accountability. And not everybody, some people live paycheck to paycheck, some people don't have paychecks at all, but informing yourself and having discussions with people is one thing you can do. Lobbying governments, so they're colonial governments and I don't believe in them, but at this time it's one way, lobbying lawmakers, and following the lead of Indigenous activists, supporting either financially or with supplies or just with labor, land defenders and water defenders, things like this, supporting local organizations like the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal, Resilience Montreal, Projet Autochtone Québec, the Native Friendship Center, and a whole bunch of other fantastic organizations, with people who are doing amazing things. Most importantly, to not see Indigenous people as passive victims. All right, you know, people are resilient and are doing amazing things, and it's always important to first of all support what it is that people are doing for their own communities. So that's my little ramble slash rant for today. I'll save stuff for my 12 other days of walking. Thanks again, and remember, it's still Sunday, so I'm gonna walk 5 kilometers for every $100 that is raised through my GoFundMe. That's a part of the wider GoFundMe for the shelter, for the virtual spirit walk. So anything raised before midnight tonight, that grand total, I'm gonna walk 5 kilometers per every $100 raised. So I'm really hoping to get to 2,000. So that'll mean I'll be walking 100 kilometers over the course of 12 days. And but obviously people can still keep giving after that, and maybe I'll try to increase the walk, but I don't want to promise more than I can do. So I can promise 100 kilometers, but I'm gonna stop there so that I don't overcommit. I walk a lot already, so I think I can swing this, but you know, bodies are bodies, and you never know when they're gonna pull some crap. So have a great day, everybody, and I thanks again for your contributions, the ones that have already come in and those that are yet to come. Bye now.